Anyone ever felt like it's taken a really long time for a relationship to be created? You've maybe met somebody, you have a target, prospective potential client, who you know that this deal, this technology company in Kitchener is somebody who you really, really, really want to connect with. By golly, it just takes forever. I'm going to break down for you how how business relationships develop. And if you'd like, I'll send you that very confusing slide. Okay. We start off as unknown. And once we are unknown, we can be either, well, okay, so let's say we're known. Okay, so we're unknown to start. Obviously, everybody's a stranger before we meet them. Right? So we've all been prepared our entire lives for meeting people. Unless, like, you and your mom and your dad and a doctor in the room, the rest of our lives has been developing these people from unknown strangers to actual connections. And then there's a point where we become known. And once we're known, we can either become neutral, like, well, they know who you are, but they don't really care, or we can be negatively known. Anybody know some negative known people? They know who they are, they're not necessarily interested in participating in their lives any further, correct? Yes. So here we are, we're known, neutral, irrelevant, whatever we want to say, or negative. Okay? And then all of a sudden, we go to an event, and we meet somebody, and we create what I call a mini bond. A mini bond is that connection where you kind of get along and you connect and you feel you feel that if you had to talk to them again, you'd be cool with that. And in actual fact, you might want to talk to them again. So for example, when Glenn and I met that day in Kitchener, I thought he was a nice fellow, great, target market rich environment. I got to meet somebody who could potentially become a client. Nice guy, certainly would continue that relationship throughout, apparently, the years, right? Okay, so here we are, we've created this mini bond. And this is where I think people get stuck. Because if you're good at going to events and meeting people and having great conversations, creating a mini bond for you is no big deal. If you're really shy or you really don't enjoy it, that might be a struggle, but you know what? You guys all look pretty sharp to me. You wouldn't be a PWC if you couldn't handle this step. So then what we do with this mini bond, if we actually want to create a relationship, we need to follow up. Because we need another touch point. It takes 6 to 8 times of interacting with somebody before they start to get who you are. If you have a stronger connection with someone, that will lessen the number of times that you need to interact before you can participate in each other's lives. But for the most part, we're going to need to do this following up sequence quite routinely. Then we move into this step called exploration. So when we follow up with somebody, we want to start exploring, is there any aligned interest here? If there's no aligned interest, you go back to the known, neutral, irrelevant, or negative category. Or maybe even the happy category, but just no reason to be connected. If there's exploration, and we come over to this side, and we end up with aligned interests, then all of a sudden we have something that has to do with, like, there's commonplace, there's something there to actually create a relationship with. Now when we come over here, this is what I would call low trust selling. Because if I need, what do I need? If I need new shoes, and I know you've got shoes, if you're not like a high-end place, I'm thinking, because I go to a shoe place where I have a high trust relationship with, but if you were just looking commodity-based something, low trust, doesn't matter. You walk in, you're unknown, all of a sudden you're known, you have a good experience, you create a mini bond, you do the follow-up, boom, you make a sale. Exciting. Does not work that way in financial sector. And this is where we have to think about the time that we have to put in, because if we're just showing up and doing one follow-up, and maybe a little bit of exploration, and we're not continuing over here on the high trust, side, then going to the event and making the connections and creating the mini bonds, waste of time. Come over here, we create aligned interests. Then once we have that, we need to, again, continue the follow-up. Follow-up is in between every one of these steps. We go from the follow-up, then we need to have experiences. Every interaction you have with someone will either add to, subtract from, or reinforce the opinion that they have of you. If you are not continually delivering positive experiences, what happens, based on aligned interests, so we start doing this, so then people will get to the point where they follow up, they've got the exploration, they get the aligned interest, they start to follow up, and all of a sudden there's momentum. We want relationship momentum. But if we stop with it, you know what happens? Or if we have a negative experience, positive or negative, positive experiences are going to continue through this circle of aligned interest. You're going to continue to follow up, provide more experiences, positive, and this circle. And then all of a sudden what happens at the other side of this circle, of course I need a third flip chart, but we'll pretend this continues. That's where we get referrals and loyalty. But if we stop this circle, what ultimately ends up happening is you come back here to known but irrelevant.